this week to all of our viewers. I have had a fantastic week this week working on volunteer equipping, and I've gotten to have a fantastic conversation with kids pastor Gloria Lee from Menlo Church. And where is that in California?
We are in Silicon Valley.
Wow. Yeah. I heard very close. Is it Stanford?
We have 6 campuses. We're multi-site, and we're between South San Francisco and San Jose.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. I've heard great things. I've heard amazing things about that church. And tell them quickly how you got into kids ministry. I thought this was a neat story.
So I literally fell in my senior year in college. My pastor said, "Hey, I think you're really gifted for this. Why don't you intern for me?" So I said, "Okay, someone's going to pay me $500 a month." Back in the 90s. I said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And after I graduated, I'm like, okay, I'm not sure what else I'm going to do, but I decided to go to seminary. And I said, okay, I'm just going to keep doing this until God tells me to do something else. And 20 some years later, he still hasn't told me to do anything else, so I'm still doing it. But I think 10 years into doing ministry, I realized this is really my calling, and I love it. There's nothing else I would rather do.
So fantastic. So you've been in 20 years in kids ministry now.
24.
24 years. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And you've got a multi-site church. That's a lot of sites.
Yep.
And you have a passion, I know, for equipping, unleashing volunteer creativity, which I think is just fantastic. We ministers rely on volunteers. We have to use volunteers. It's our privilege to get to use volunteers. But I was listening to her talk about her passion for equipping volunteers and wishing that more churches were using that model. Yeah. So how did you get started, thinking of unleashing volunteers' potential?
I just got really lucky in my first ministry, the first 3-4 years. I had a lot of college students that volunteered in our ministry, and they had tons of energy. This is before, this is once again 90s, so we didn't have video games that we could play all night long. I mean, we did. We had Tetris, but not like today.
Frogger.
Yeah, exactly. But the volunteers I had just took the ministry, they owned it, and they went above and beyond. We literally had 2-hour meetings on a weekly basis to see how we can minister better to the kids, and they were just all on board. When I moved on to my next ministry, I realized, that's not the norm. We actually have to equip volunteers. That was a new thing for me. But I knew what it could be because I'd experienced it by pure grace of God. So I think that's when I realized volunteers can have such huge impact on the lives of these kids. The kids that were in our ministry, in my very first ministry, I still keep in touch with. I still get invited to their weddings, to their kids. I mean, now they're old enough to have their own kids, so I get invited to their kids' birthdays. But it's because we were relationally invested, and I realized these kids don't remember the lessons they were taught. They remember the relationships. And I still get emails, or I get Facebook requests from my old students, and they're like, "I don't remember anything you taught me, but I remember that you loved us." Oh. And that just makes me want to really encourage our volunteers to invest in these kids and their spiritual lives, and help them to love Jesus more and more, because that's what they're gonna leave church with.
So you guys you created this culture of community and serving together, which to me seems to be diametrically opposed to one person standing on the stage and doing everything. Kind of I'm the one paid pastor and everyone else will just sit and listen.
I mean, reality, whether you have 10 kids or 500 kids or 1,000 kids, if you have 10 kids, it's probably possible for me to reach out to all 10 of them. But when you have more than 40, 50, I can't invest in all of these kids, right? But if I equip and train our volunteers to invest in these kids and their families, you're multiplying all these relationships that will carry them through their lives. And I really believe in the whole sticky faith model where every kid needs at least 5 adults that will invest in them, because at one point they're going to stop listening to their parents, right?
Yes.
So you need other adults that will speak truth into their lives.
I agree.
And I think you need to start that when they're young, so that as they go through their adolescent stage and so forth, you have other adults in their lives that are, speaking truth into them.
I could not agree more. In my last 2 children's pastorates, there were quite a few children, and there was no way I could have a personal, a close enough relationship with every one of those children without being spread far too thin. So what I would tell my leaders was, we don't need one children's pastor. We need 100.
Yeah.
We need 200. It needs to be your ministry. You're not just filling a hole. You are
Exactly.
filling out your calling to serve these children.
Exactly.
I wish that more churches were that way, where you're on a team model. I know too that the last place I served, we never could have grown very much. We could not have spread out or had any level of excellence like what we had without that massive team.
Exactly.
I could not have taken it there. There's no way on my own. So it had to be a team effort.
Yeah. And we really believe that growth happens best in the context of relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So, one thing that we do now is we ask our life group leaders to move up with their kids once, after preschool, because they get put into their life groups in preschool. And we're like, envision moving up with the same group every year.
I love it.
And you know what? For now, let's go up to when they finish pre-K. Now, envision moving up with them until they finish elementary. And we actually have some leaders that have been with the same group of kids for 8+ years. Yeah.
I love that, the building relationship.
Oh, yeah.
And also, we have kids that have some special needs, and being able to see the same teacher every week is really important to them, and doing ministry off the basis of that relationship.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really good. You were mentioning earlier that a lot of our leaders don't realize at first that we don't really have a lot of time with these kids. Thinking, every Sunday, but if you only have them a year, which a lot of churches have that model, you have the kids 1 year, and then because the average family only attends 1.2 times a month, you're going to have them 1, maybe 2 hours a month.
Yeah.
So that's 20 hours.
Yeah, 20 to 24 hours in
A
a
year.
year. That's like 1 day's worth at best.
So you have not 1 second to waste
Exactly.
to minister to these kids. Wow. So I would love to encourage anybody watching, don't give up. Don't think you're doing a terrible job. Just keep empowering those leaders and doing ministry as a team. You'll burn out if it's all just you. Keep praying that God gives you a team. And then I would also say, if that culture doesn't exist in your church right now, don't despair. You can create it. It takes time, though. And you got to keep working on creating a culture of working as a team rather than just you. They say kids don't want a mage on the stage. They want a guide on the side. So you may have to work to create that culture.
One thing that I've learned is I need to model to the volunteers what I want them to do for their kids. So for instance, in our ministry, we send birthday cards to all of our volunteers, and then we said, hey, how did it feel to get like snail mail, right? You can do that for your kids. And we have volunteers that actually give us postcards every week to send to the kids. I tell our volunteers, and I have actually a lot of student volunteers, and I tell them, hey, whenever you're like playing sports or you're performing or you're in some type of theater, invite me. I want to see you. And when I go, their engagement in their volunteer role definitely changes. So I say it's definitely worth the investment. And of course, their parents then really want to be more engaged with the volunteers because they see how their kids are loved on. Yeah.
can totally see that. That's beautiful. So you're engaged in their lives even outside of church. It's community, it's family, and it's a lifelong thing. It's not just
exactly. And I think it helps volunteers realize that I just don't need them to be volunteers, or I don't just need them to fill a role, but I actually really care for them and love them. And I always tell them, hey, I understand life happens. If you're really busy this season and you just need to take time off, let me know, because I care about you as a person first. I care about your well-being before, I need you as a volunteer. So I think that message is really important. Yeah.
Oh, that is so important. And I think people are looking for that when they want to volunteer.
Oh, yeah.
They want to make a huge difference, and they want to belong to a community where you can interact and grow together. Oh my goodness. So if they have any questions, you can email me here. I'll put the link below, and I'll see if she's available to answer your questions at that point. And I just want to say thank you to Kids Pastor Gloria Lee for coming on the show today, and I hope this encourages you to build a team and to invest in relationship with your people. Again, thank you so much. Comment below. I read and respond to all the comments, and we'll talk to you later. See you next week.